Hello, everybody. My name is Jonathan Ray, and welcome to Mysteries of the Past podcast. Today I have with me,
Soul Provost.
and
Aiden Harris.
today we're going to be talking about D.B. Cooper. And so I'm assuming y'all know what the story is, right? You know, it's like a guy, and then he goes on the plane, then he says he has a bomb to the flight attendant, then they give him like $200,000, and then he just jumps out randomly, and then no one really knows whether he's alive or dead right now. And there's been a lot of information passed throughout the years, throughout the however many, so 5 decades have passed, I'd hope, at least, anyways. But a lot of people have questions about that and and theories. And one of them was that he was like some type of Canadian dude, because like there was like a book in it. In France, there was like a book released, and one of the guys' name was like Dan Cooper or something. But I don't really get the theory because like that would have to be the book would have had to been imported from France to the United States, and he had to read that as like a little kid, and it's like that's kind of doesn't make a lot of sense or something like that, or to Canada, whatever. And but yeah, just a lot of theories going around, like and then another one is that I don't really agree with this one, but one of the theories is that he was never real, and he was just made up by crew members. It's like doesn't make any sense. But and then another one is that I think currently the FBI is like leading theory is that he died, and like he just died somewhere, and that's why I can't find him. And one of them is that he just jumped out, and then they don't know whether it was just like too cold to jump out of, didn't have the proper equipment, or it was like parachute malfunction, and then he just went splat on the ground. But then again, I don't know why I can't find the body. And then yeah.
What if the crew members were the ones who tossed him out to keep the money?
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be pretty insane.
Yeah. And maybe he wasn't such a bad guy after all. And actually, I heard a story that there was like a family or whatever, and it was like a daughter, and it was like around that Thanksgiving time, and her uncle was named like Dan something, Dan C or Dan Kane or something, and then he came from like he went to Thanksgiving, and he was acting real suspicious and stuff like that. Like um, he was like late to Thanksgiving or whatever, something like that. And it's like, well, where were you? And he just I don't know. He sounded like he was stressed or something. And then but yeah, there's a lot of like eyewitnesses claiming they know D.B. Cooper, or like they are D.B. Cooper, or like even deathbed confessions. I think there's like a guy whose last name was like Weaver or something.
Dwayne Weber.
Yeah, thank you, Weber, Weaver, whatever. And he was like, uh, yeah, I'm D.B. Cooper, by the way. It's like, man, that's crazy.
Yeah. Do you know how much money he had?
No, no. I think it was around like 200,000 or something, but I don't know how much that translates into today's money.
Awesome.
Well, it in a 2023 it would translate to be about $1.5 million.
Darn,
Nice. Nice.
I wish I had that money.
I bet you he did too. Awesome. Do you know what the what area the FBI was searching as far as the area they believe that he I guess if we use the theory of the crew members throwing him off or him just jumping out of the plane, right? Because I think that's what I read was he had like a parachute jumped off the plane, and nobody could ever find him, right?
Yeah, I think he was said to have like gone somewhere in like the Colombian River or something, right? Like around that area. I
Oh,
think.
okay. Interesting. Very interesting. You know, I've never done too much studies on it, but I've heard a few people reference this story before. It's even been referenced in like movies.
Yeah.
There was a movie, I want to say 2000, like 3, I believe it was called Without a Paddle, and it's actually a pretty funny movie. It's about like these three friends who, as kids, they grew up reading that story, and they would enact it. They would like reenact it and everything. They would act like they were jumping out of a plane and all that good stuff. Then they get older. One of them is like a dentist. One is he's like a slacker, and the other guy I think he's like a musician or something like that. Anywho, they get older, and there was a fourth one, and one of their buddies dies, and the buddy who died, he was like fixated on trying to solve the DB Cooper mystery or case or whatever.
Mhm.
And so when he passed away, all the other friends came together and they were like, "Look, we found all his research and there's a map and everything." And they were like, "Look, he was like actually planning to go, search the area because he believes he found
Mhm.
DB Cooper."
Yeah.
So the that's like the movie in a nutshell.
Mhm.
The rest of it, like they actually go into the wilderness searching for him, and then there's like a bunch of crazy. Have you seen it?
No, but I know what you're talking about.
Okay, yeah, it's a good movie. You guys should check it out. It is a little older, I'm not gonna lie. It's a little over 20 years, um, give or take a year or two, but it's a good movie without a paddle. You should check it out.
Yeah.
There's also a more recent, I don't want to say more recent, a show called Prison Break. And on that show, they actually, one of the inmates who's breaking out of the prison, he's like this really old man, um, but he claims to be DB Cooper.
Mm.
And it's really cool to kind of see it because, like I said in the show, he's like this really old guy,
Mhm.
and the main character who's orchestrating the entire like prison break, um, he figures out that this guy is potentially, he doesn't know for sure, but he, based off of like his research and the things he's heard the old man say, he's like, I think that's the real guy,
Yeah.
right? So he actually puts him in the plan to escape because he's like, dude, when we leave, when we get out of here, we're gonna need money.
Yeah.
So he was like, if you're DB Cooper, then you're in basically.
Yeah.
And that's in a nutshell. Of course, the show is called Prison Break. You guys should check it out.
Have y'all ever heard of the like suspects in it? Like I think currently right now the most popular one was Richard McCoy. No, and he was like he looks very similar to DB Cooper, right? If you put his face up, and then you put the described mugshot of DB Cooper side by side, they look very similar.
Hmm.
And then what was I think he also had a he what was it? I think his like kids or something said that he was DB Cooper, but they didn't say it because the mom was connected to the crime and they didn't want the mom getting arrested. But after the mom died, then they're like, yeah, our dad's probably the world's or the United States most famous like
Hmm.
plane hijacker ever. Anyways, and then I believe some guy also on like YouTube or whatever, he like found his like parachute. I don't know if that's actually true or not.
Yeah. Kind of sounds like the Without a Paddle movie.
Yeah.
The guy's doing all this research and he swears up and down that he found the landing spot where he would have made contact with the ground after jumping out. So yeah, that's interesting. Um, I read a little bit about a person. His name was Robert Rackstraw.
Yeah.
Um, he was a military veteran. He was also he had training with parachutes and
Mhm.
things like that, so he knew how to like jump out of planes. The FBI was investigating him, and I believe in 2018 they had said that he had decoded some messages that were allegedly sent by Cooper. Um, that, or excuse me, the FBI. The FBI had said that they intercepted these codes or found these codes where they're saying that DB Cooper was sending him these messages, um, because he was involved in the robbery and the hijacking.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just I don't know. Have you heard about that guy? Did you read anything about him?
Um, no, but I have heard the name, but I have been wondering about like who would have who would have what's it called had some experience like as you said with like parachutes and stuff because like maybe he was like some type of like skydiving instructor like ex-military or whatever because like no guy who's like doesn't know how to use a parachute is gonna jump out with a he's gonna jump out of a plane 10,000 feet above the ground with a bunch of money
Hmm.
and then so yeah he's probably some like type of ex-military dude or like or just maybe just a skydiving fanatic or whatever. I don't know if they had this in the 1970s.
Yeah. Nice. Nice.
And actually, one of the questions I do have that a lot of people have asked, like, why did he ask for four parachutes? It's like I don't know if he was gonna take like a hostage, but like I don't know how that would work. Like well, y'all both jump out. He's like, okay, deploy your shoot now. It's like you're gonna land with me in the Columbian River. It's like
Yeah. I always go ahead. Were you about to say something? Go ahead.
Well, uh, I feel like I have heard somewhere that it could be because like they could give him a parachute that doesn't work. So if he asked for four, then they might think that he was taking a hostage, and and they wouldn't want the hostage to like get hurt or injured.
yeah,
So he wanted to have actual working ones, and they wouldn't know which one the hostage that they're thinking would have, so they would most likely give actual working parachutes.
Mm.
yeah, that makes sense because you know after he like kicked off one of the like plane attendants or whatever at one of the stops while they were getting the money, there were five people on board. It was him and like four other like crew members on board, and he only has four parachutes. I don't know. Actually, maybe they had more parachutes in the back or whatever. But why did he ask for four? It's like if there's like five people on board, so it makes sense that he wouldn't actually be trying to get hostages and just trying to like make him think that he's gonna get hostages.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very there's a lot of mystery still surrounding the whole thing. Um, as far as like for me, let me say this. I think the reason why there was more parachutes is because there's more people involved.
Mm-hmm.
Um, to hijack a plane as one individual, not to say that it can't be done, I just think that it's kind of far fetched to
Yeah.
think that. The list of suspects that they had mentioned over the years, individuals like William J. Smith, um, for instance, the Robert Rackstraw, and then there's also Kenneth Christiansen, excuse me. Um, all these guys, all military backgrounds, all paratroopers or individuals who are um, able to make the jump, right? Using parachutes so that they can come down and make off with all that money. For me, it just seems far fetched to think that he acted alone,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I think the reason why there was more parachutes that were requested and on board is simply because he couldn't do it by himself.
Yeah.
$200,000 in a bag. Depending on what size bag. I mean, I think you can get that all in one bag, but that's still going to be really heavy
Yeah.
to carry. So these things just lead me to believe that there had to have been more than just one.
Yeah. And because like there's a question like he randomly jumped out after he got the money. It wasn't he just got the money and left. And so I think he like planned to jump out at a certain time so he'd land so in the forest and like maybe uh, again one of the suspects is probably his wife if he had one.
Mm.
Like, maybe she was like waiting in a car down there or something. Maybe in like a Jeep Wrangler or something.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's very possible.
Mm.
Very possible.
Oh, have you all heard about his clip-on tie having like titanium on it?
No.
And they with later like forensics, like technology development, they found there was like traces of titanium on there. And the thing is, that doesn't make a lot of sense because number one, it probably wasn't from the current day because I don't think anyone would be rubbing titanium on the stuff, especially since it's in a they're trying to use it for investigation. Those kind of contaminants at this point. But back in the day in the 1970s, titanium wasn't very common. You know, like so this guy was probably like he could have been like a forgot how to pronounce it, but like metallurgist or something like that, and or just worked with like titanium maybe or like maybe like manufacture something, I don't know. But it's like interesting because like it's very rare back in the day, so he would have that limits it down to what he could have who he could have been, because like only a certain amount of people would be dealing with titanium back in the day.
Okay.
But yeah, but sadly they probably can't really get anything out of it because the clip-on tie was back in the day they didn't really have these like fingerprint scanning like this technology back then, so they had people touching it without any gloves, touching the clip-on tie. The only evidence they have of what was on this man, that could be used to like besides the cigarette stuff, which they can really find much of, or because they didn't have any DNA analysis back then. But yeah, so now sadly it's contaminated, and they probably won't find anything ever from it.
Interesting, very interesting. I just looked it up, and I just found that they released a movie. Um, HBO released a movie that features excuse me. HBO released a length doctor blah. Jeez Louise, I can't even talk today. HBO released a feature-length documentary, The Mystery of D.B. Cooper, in 2020, and then 2 years later, Netflix premiered its own 4-part docu-series, right? So that is something that I'm gonna have to go check out to kind of get into this a little bit more. I wish I would have seen this before because I would have definitely checked it out. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna go peep that out. So anybody listening, if you're interested in this case, the mystery of DB Cooper, you can find that on HBO, and you can also find it on Netflix. And on Netflix, it is a 4-part little docu-series. So that's going to be very interesting to check out, and kind of just learn more about what's going on. Do you guys know about any other films that have referenced this story?
I don't think YouTube counts, so no.
There was a film. It was released a long time ago, 1981, and it was called The Pursuit of D.B. Cooper, and it starred Trent Williams and Robert Duvall. And it looks like, hold on, let me see here. It looks like they remade it, and it says, oh, so they remade it and made it into another documentary, I Am D.B. Cooper. And that one released in 2022. So I'm gonna have to go check that one out as well. Have you heard of that one, So?
I have not.
Okay. Yeah, that looks like that's gonna be a good one right there to check out. I know one of the watch, I'll read this when you were talking about the cigarette. In 2016, the FBI announced it was closing the book on its Cooper investigation in order to redirect sources. The Bureau's existing evidence is preserved. However, Cooper's cigarette butts from the flight, which could contain DNA, are missing. Um, so that was one of the things that, when I was looking at kind of like while they're on the plane, how you were saying, he was smoking. Well, that's what they say, right? He was like smoking a lot. Um, how I found it odd how you can have these cigarette butts, right, that have DNA on them, right? And I understand that back then they weren't able to like run DNA like they can now, but I feel like that would be, so vital, right, to whatever department had this evidence, right, to where nowadays if we just had those butts we could wrap this up.
Yeah.
We could be like, DB Cooper, we know who you are, where you are, right, everything like that. So I think it's unfortunate that we have a case like this where something as simple as having that cigarette butt today would allow us to crack the case.
Yeah.
Mhm.
To yeah, if it happened, if it happened in the modern day, then it probably wouldn't even be more than a week until like we found out who he was.
Right.
Like but back in the 1970s, they didn't even have metal detectors for what's called like planes. Until like in the
Right.
2000s when they actually started like adding a lot more of those. And there's a theory by probably only by one guy because I don't really believe it, but someone said he must have been a CIA operative because he was trying to get the United States to change their airplane security laws. And I'm like, why does it have to be CIA and what airplane security laws? So what do you do with the 200,000 after that?
Yeah.
Anyways,
So what I read is after they gave up, kind of in 2016, shortly after, their their like biggest lead, Richard McCoy, his family kind of stepped up and they found a parachute very similar to the ones
Mm.
that were taken. They found it in his stuff in his house. Um,
Oh.
and let me see, Dan Greider, he got involved in the case because he had been studying it for the past 20 years, and he has a YouTube channel where he has a two-part series called Probable Cause, and he created that in 2021 and 22.
Nice.
But he kind of connects the dots, and he's basically the main person. He also worked with the police for a while to put together this case.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Very, very interesting.
with the people who say that he just like died and like I don't know he did all this stuff and then just like died out of nowhere. Like I mean I can get that because there's not a lot of proof that he's alive. I guess other than like uh, people have been suspected to be him, but I don't get the people who are like, oh, he just died in the Colombian River, and because okay, for example, so you're telling me a guy who would have like thought about all this, how he's gonna pretend to have a bomb, or like maybe he did have a bomb, and then he would have had to think about, okay, what goes wrong if like, yeah, you don't have a bomb, okay, it's time to blow myself up now, or like, or maybe he had like a pistol in there that would have had to require some at least beginner level of thinking, like
Mhm.
what's gonna happen if they call my bluff, and then what's gonna happen when I tell everyone to get off, and that we're headed to like Vancouver or Portland or whatever, and then he had to think about he'd have to think about his jump, if he just died, that would have meant that he probably didn't have like a lot of thinking when it comes to that,
Mhm.
because like I think a guy who's like gonna sneak past airport security, even though they had less security back then, and be like, oh yeah, it's just a briefcase, and then but he just has a bomb in there or whatever, and then he's gonna think about how he's gonna give the note to the flight attendant, and then be like, check that note, and then they're gonna go ahead and not call security on him or whatever, uh, or if they do call security, you have to think about that, and it's like it's a very big plan for someone who would supposedly not think about it much, And I think
Mhm.
a guy who doesn't think about it much would be a guy who actually, just died after not laying like his parachute over or whatever. And another thing is, I don't really think that the money, how there was like a little bit of money left by the river, whatever. It's like it doesn't really make sense that there's only like a little bit of money, and like not like a lot more of it, Maybe it was planted or whatever, or like
Yeah.
I,
Do you think that highlights that he didn't die, that he
yeah,
actually survived the jump?
yeah,
Because what did they say? It was like a little over $5,000 that they found, right?
yeah,
Isn't that what they said? So to me, I'm like, because I have heard people say that they don't know where he is, that they think he just died or something. But I'm like, I don't think that's the case. I think he was living it up in wherever he landed, he managed to. And again, this is 1971, so there's not cameras on every street light, on every corner. So wherever he landed, it's not far fetched to think, especially if he did this with accomplices, right? It should not be far fetched to think that he was able to experienced paratroopers, right? Military men. It said that I read right here. Um, it said that Cooper demanded the jet fly lower than 10,000 feet and at a speed under 200 knots,
yeah,
right? So the fact that you find this small amount of money just laying around, right? I honestly want to say like that was the money to like throw them off, right? That's the bait to say we found this money over here. They got to be in this area, but in all reality, maybe while they're falling, right, and they're coming down, they drop like a small little package that has the 5 grand in it, and then they make themselves drift off even further away from where the money fell. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's just something I'm trying to wrap my head around, and it makes sense that these guys, that guy, for instance, the guy in the show Prison Break, that might have been DB Cooper.
yeah.
That might have been DB Cooper. I'm just like, Soul's looking at me like, you're tripping. I'm just joking. I'm being silly. But yeah, I would definitely think these guys got to be alive somewhere, running around, living it up, right? And I mean, I don't know about now, unless they invested that money, because I mean, $1 million in 1971 till now, or excuse me, $200,000. That was the equivalency of $1 million. I would have to say that money's probably gone.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Gone. Inflation alone. um, interesting, interesting. You guys got any other facts or anything you want to share about DB Cooper?
Uh,
Well, looking into it, I did find a lot more about the Richard McCoy case because only 5 months after the whole DB Cooper hijacking, there was a copycat one, and that's why they're looking at McCoy because it was him, but they were unable to find him as soon as it happened. The same exact thing. Um, Going around the same area, he demanded actually $500,000 in cash and 4 parachutes. Then he jumped out with 2 parachutes. Around like the same thing, and then they were unable to find him, but he did leave fingerprints, so they knew exactly who he was. And but they weren't able to find him until recently when his family stepped up with um, the parachute, and they did find a log where he was an amateur skydiver. So his son and let me see, his son and Dan Greider, the man who was really interested in the case, they went to police in the area, and they were able to bring the parachute and the log to FBI so they could look into it.
Nice. Very nice. Very nice. Well, that's interesting stuff. um, very interesting. What do you think about um, what did you say his name was McCoy?
Richard McCoy.
Richard McCoy. What do you think about that?
Um, I think it is odd that it was so similar and he got away with it the same
Yeah.
exact way. Um, there's a lot of evidence against him, especially like after that happened, his family
Yeah.
found it. But they also believe that his wife might have been involved helping out with both of those because they don't think that he could get away with it by himself.
Interesting.
And his wife was said to not want her children to take all that stuff to the FBI. She kind of just wanted them to leave it alone and just put it up. And
Yeah.
but they were like, it's odd that she fought it so much.
Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting.
Okay, it looks like that's going to do it for this episode of Mysteries of the Past. I hope y'all enjoy this episode. Make sure to, I don't know, like, comment, share it to your grandma, show it to your dog, I don't know. Hopefully he likes it, and we'll see you next time.